and former Speaker of the House, the one and only Newt Gingrich. Newt, I want to take that political question to you as well. If you're Joe Biden and you're constantly at odds with Senator Joe Biden, who once said sanctuary cities shouldn't be able to do what they do, employers should be punished for hiring, quote, illegals. He said he wanted to make sure that drugs pouring in from, quote, corrupt Mexico couldn't get here. I mean, President Biden is constantly at odds with Senator Biden. Senator Biden had a point. I think he was more center-right in his views on immigration and border security. But as the problem has increased in severity, Joe Biden's engagement on it has decreased. And I'm asking you first, as somebody who's known and worked with Joe Biden for years, what you make of all that. One. Two, what about the political currency that he's frittering away? The polls show that immigration, along with inflation, are his worst handled issues.
Well, look, I think you can't understand Joe Biden without looking at his 8 years as Barack Obama's vice president. Obama is arguably the most radical person ever to be president, protected by the news media. But when you look at his underlying values and his speeches and his policies and the people he brought in, he is extraordinarily radical. In that process, Biden, over an 8-year period, became sort of a mini Barack, if you will. And so what you have is we don't have a problem on the border. We have a Biden immigration policy, which is working perfectly if you're a hard left person. It's destroying American identity. It's crippling the rule of law. It is flooding the country with people who haven't been trained into the culture, don't necessarily understand how to function in our society, and create all sorts of problems. And I think we don't realize yet this is a deliberate policy by people who want to undermine America, change it profoundly, and eliminate all of those crazy ideas like the Constitution, the rule of law, the work ethic, meritocracy, actually being able to know and do something. If you're on the hard left, those are all terrible ideas. And so what you have with Biden is a commitment. Now, I think politically, probably it's going to be a disaster, but they don't see it that way. They won the presidency in 2020. They survived 2022. They had an okay 2023. I think they think that they have a reasonable chance of survival. And they know that if they were to go to the policies you and I believe in, that their entire left would erupt and there'd be a civil war in the Democratic Party. So Biden goes along with the most active, aggressive, and militant parts of his coalition. And what we have is what you showed tonight on television.
Newt, I don't know if it's a full-out civil war in the Democratic Party, but you do see some people pulling away from Biden on this. You have the Democratic governor of Arizona all of a sudden finding religion on border security, John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, and a few others. And I think they're reading the polls and the tea leaves. They're seeing that the growing number of Democrats and certainly the vast majority of independents now put border security top of the list. And so I think people look at it as national security sovereignty as well. But as Stephen Miller was stating, there are things the next administration can do. When you were Speaker of the, thinking back to your time as Speaker of the House and as a congressional expert, what can the Congress do to support the next president of the United States so that everything's not through executive action? What should Congress do?
Well, let me start with right now. They don't have to wait for the next president.
That's true.
I think that Speaker Mike Johnson has done a very good job of setting it up to say, look, you want aid for Ukraine, you want aid for Israel, fine. We're going to fix the border. Here is a Republican bill that passed that would dramatically change the border. And what you've seen so far is the Biden administration and the Senate Democrats have said, no, keeping the border open, having a few million more illegal immigrants is more important to us than getting aid to Israel or aid to Ukraine. And I hope that the House Republicans will stick very firmly in favor of a policy, which, by the way, at America's New Majority Project, we just did a poll, and 75% of the country favors more border guards. Something like 67% of the country favors the bill that the Republicans passed in the House. There is zero opportunity to ever get a majority in favor of Biden's illegal immigration policy. So if House Republicans will stand firm, you might be shocked by January, February, March to suddenly see the president have to actually sign a bill that gets us back to a Trump policy, which we know worked. I mean, this is a matter of practical fact. The Trump policy on the border worked. We were a safer country. We had less illegal immigration. We had a much greater opportunity to grow and be safe. We stopped a lot of drugs, a lot of human trafficking, and a lot of cartel activity. We can get back to that. And the House Republicans under Speaker Johnson have taken a very important first step in that direction.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for your wisdom and your strategic counsel. Merry
Thank
Christmas to Callista and you. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.